Well, I am right now at a local, I guess, apartment complex. I want you to see what it looks like. It's probably about 8:30 in the evening, and you can't really see it. Here's the light right there. And there's a park. This is the park right here. And this is the park in front of the apartment complex. Over there is this huge crane where they're building another building. Where you see all the lights over there, those are the already built buildings. And over here there's another crane. You can't really see it. There's another crane where they're building another building. And then right here is this is a park area. There are people walking their dogs, and behind me over there on the other side of all the trees and the brushes is the Willamette River. And this right here is this beautiful building. It's really new. I'm not sure how old it is, but and then over there is the interstate, or the bridge that the bridge goes all the way over there. Those are some two old buildings that are probably going to get torn down sometime in the future. And over there is the bridge that connects, that we have to cross over from Washington State to, when we're leaving Washington State to come over to Oregon. And I want to show you this area here. This is like a park area, and I want to show you where I'm sitting. This is my bag, and there's a light pole right there. And so that's where I'm sitting. You see, I wanted you to see that. This is where I'm sitting. I'm sitting right there on the other side. And so I'm going to put the camera there. Okay? So you see exactly where I'm sitting. I'm going to put the camera right here. And I'm going to... Ta-da! There I am. It's a Monday, October 6th, 2010, and this video is in defense of the fourth book that I am publishing, entitled Let's Talk About God. Today I went online for 3 hours, and I registered the UBI number for the church at Seattle. I'm still using the Bush Hotel's address, 621 South Jackson Street, apartment 420, which I no longer live at. But the manager there, Landon Union, did something against me back in 2000, 11 and 12, 10, 11, and 12, however long I was living there. I was not very happy. For the year that I lived there, it was almost as if I was under heavy persecution. This Asian man and his staff basically let me have it. They really judged me. I didn't appreciate the judgment because I was living in a studio at the time, and they allowed Gabriel, and Landon Union was the Gabriel Franklin representative. I mean, if you understood the gay community, this guy was a representative, and he allowed her in and out of that apartment. Both John MacArthur, Gabriel Franklin, Mark Rodriguez, the whole kit and caboodle, everybody that you see down here in Portland, Oregon that I'm dealing with, I dealt with them first up there in that apartment complex. And before that apartment complex was, before the Bush Hotel was I went to jail for 5 months after punching that guy in the head for losing the trailer and the truck. And then before that, it was the trailer in the trailer park on Rainier Avenue. Well, anyway, I used the UBI number and their address because Landon, when I was forced to leave the Bush Hotel, I was put in jail for 21 days after I was sexually assaulted on the property. When I called the police, 4 officers came, they arrested me and put me in jail under false accusation. And I'm thinking, well, I didn't do anything. I don't understand. I'm trying to report a rape here. But they approved of Gabriel Franklin's rape. They approved of everything that Gabriel Franklin had done. They completely supported him. But when it came to me, it was more or less, who cares, who gives a rat a toot, whatever, You go back to Haiti where you came from, go back to the Caribbean and cry your eyes out to your mother or something, Go home. So anyway, I left and came down here, and I told Landon, your establishment owes me $389, for the deposit that I had put. Well, he wouldn't give me the money. He said that I left without the 30-day notice. And I said, well, I didn't have a choice. I was arrested and I was put in jail. I almost lost all my things, all my furniture. And I had to come back, and the day that I returned to, the day that I was released, I was told that I couldn't live in Seattle anymore, so I had to come, to move. So I packed up everything and I left, without question, because they were abusing me in the jail, abusing me in the apartment, abusing me in the streets for preaching the gospel. So I said, okay, well, I'll go. The community gave me enough warning so that they're like, if you don't leave, we're going to, we're gonna really put you in jail for a longer period of time than the 21 days. In other words, we're really going to judge you. So I said, all right, well, I left. Okay, I didn't remain for another day or a week. And the same day I was released, the same day I left. Well, from May 15th, 2012 to now, Landon had all that time to give me the money, and you had to. So I said, okay, well, I'll give it back to you by using the address and, on the UBI account that I have up there. Because I didn't intend to, close out the account and take off running. That wasn't my intention. That was their plan as a clan and as a gay community. And in Seattle, they didn't approve. So, there goes I. But for the grace of God, I made it down here. Anyway, I come down here and I've been registering it using the old address because we have an unfinished business. They owe me money. Almost $400, and until they give me that $400, I'm going to keep using it. And if that means, who knows what's going to entail in that. They weren't too happy about it, and they made mention of it today, and so I have to go to the mall and eat something I bought from one of their restaurants, which is fine because I don't have a problem with eating their food or associating with them as a people. I just didn't like, what was done to me on the property where they were managing, and for them to just overlook it as if nothing had happened. And when I had told Landon repeatedly she's molesting me in this apartment, you need to either remove the key from her, he wouldn't do it. He was a homosexual who literally gave into the situation. Now tonight, I spent the day at the library trying to register the book Let's Talk About God. So that was the UBI. It took me a while to go through the computer and to pay for it. Then I went to Bank of America and made some transactions to my other bank that I usually use for ministry, and one for bills and things. Went to Tiger where I have the storage facility, and I was given a warning. They left a warning outside of my door, the storage door, and I think the warning was the word eagle. And I want to show you something here. Can you see it? No, you probably can't see it. They just walked by. Females. They have words to say. I don't know who they are, but they're against. I'm not sure who they are, but they're against. And I thought I better bring them out before anything else transpires tonight. It's been a bad night. Anyway, I'm at the park here by myself. I'm always by myself. This is what the persecution of John MacArthur has done to me. Basically kept me isolated, away from everyone. And so the real racial issue in this country has caught up to me, where blacks and whites don't mix. Blacks and whites don't have anything to do with each other, both in church or state. And so I'm dealing with it right now. But anyway, I went to Tiger, put away a transcript thing that I had bought from Office Depot. I spent it wasn't that expensive, but I spent like $100 on it out of my savings. And to buy a transcript thing, put it on your laptop computer. I can't even walk around with a laptop computer, or else they'll destroy the computer, take all the information out of it. That's how vicious these Europeans have become. I mean, they're like the most malicious people I have ever had to deal with in my life. I mean, they're the only people I've been dealing with all my life, but they've just gotten more and more malicious over the course of time, and more demanding as to, you know, who's in charge of my life. And I'm thinking, well, God is in charge of my life. And they're like, no, he's not. And so that's what I'm dealing with. Well, anyway, I went to Tigard, and they left me that little subliminal message outside of my storage facility, storage door, letting me know that Rodriguez and Gerardo Hernandez is Spanish. The Spanish has access to my storage facility. And so that means they will go into the storage facility and they will sabotage computer, take out information, go through files, and they've done it before. And so and they're working for John MacArthur. They're working for the whites. So the Spanish turn on me, they take my information and they give it to the whites, and the whites give it to John. And of course, John looks innocent as if he has nothing to do with it, but they've been doing it this way for years. So anyway, they left me some subliminal messages, and I pretty much put everything in a closet. So like a closet within a closet. Made my way back downtown. Melinda told me, you know, I can hear her. She's like, you better go to the Asian restaurant in the mall and grab something. So I went and grabbed something to eat, and went up to Powell's, right? When I got to Powell's, now here it is, when I was at the library, I was trying to pay off the entire amount for publishing Let's Talk About God, and I couldn't because my PayPal account, I didn't know I didn't know the how do you say, I didn't know the password, so I had to create a whole new password, and I ran out of time. So they ended up giving me an extra hour to do it. Within that extra hour, I was able to make a payment, but I wasn't sure if the payment had gone through. So I emailed the publisher and asked her, you know, did it go through or whatnot. So anyway, I go to Powell's after dinner, and go to the second floor, and I'm talking to this guy about publishers. You know, if they had a book for publishers, you know, like a book that explains who the publishers are, the different publishers that are publishing for Christian, like Christian publishers and whatnot. And as I'm talking to him, he's the cashier behind the desk. He's looking beyond my shoulders to a group of women, one of them looking like Gabriel Franklin, and getting instructions from them as to whether or not he can tell me who the publishers are. And I'm thinking to myself, I am a customer. I need the information on who these publishers are so I can do my job, right? Because sometimes you go with a publisher and the publisher may not even want to publish the book. So you at least want to give yourself some sort of option to what other publishing companies are offering, right? And who they are. You want to know something about, you know, the publishing world. I went to Imago Day on Sunday, which was yesterday, and they had a man there who had just published his book with Thomas Nelson. And it looks like they did a pretty good job in presenting the book. I didn't think about going to Thomas Nelson because, you know, the community, Thomas goes back to Tom Sullivan, John MacArthur. Nelson goes back to Gabriel Franklin. Nelson goes back to Melissa Nelson from Nanuet High School, and Gabriel Franklin, right? So I couldn't go to Thomas Nelson even if I wanted to. But I wanted the information on the book publishers, right? So I at least familiarize myself with some of the more known publishing companies and, you know, whatever information that there is, because sometimes you go online and you don't get the full information, and they only give you a part information. So I wanted to get a book that basically described where they were located, who they were. Like, you know, you're working with a publishing company and you don't know who the representatives are. You don't know what they look like. You don't know what the company looks like. You don't know where the company is located. You have no idea who these people are that you're dealing with. You don't see them online. Their faces are not even on the website, right? And it's just a name. And any Joe Schmo could play the role of the person, right? And so you don't have a concrete person that you're dealing with. So I wanted the information so that I would know, at least in the future, you know, when you choose a publishing company, know who you're talking to, know who you're dealing with, right? I mean, you could be talking to someone for years and not even know what they look like and who they are, right? They can know everything about you, but you don't know who they are. You don't know who the staff is. You know what I mean? And so it's not a good connection, and it's not a good decision. And the person could deceive you in so many different ways, take your money and or have you killed. I mean, God, there's so many different things that people could do because people are deceitful in this country and in this world of ours, and they do most malicious and wicked and vicious things, you know. And so I went on the Powell's kiosk after dealing with this cashier. I walked away and I go to myself, I'm like, you know, you're a homosexual because, you know what, you didn't talk to me. You spoke to those women who were behind me, and I'm not even with those women. I didn't say that to him, but I said it out loud. You're a homosexual walking by something. I don't know what it was. And I guess the store heard me. And when I went to the kiosk in the front part of the store, and I was looking up publishers and publishing companies, books on different on U.S. publishing companies, they, on the other side of the computer, were opposing me by basically shutting down. They were giving me the very opposite, right? They were giving me the very opposite of what I was asked for, of what I was asking for. Earlier tonight, when I was coming back from Tigard, I was in the bus 12. Melinda was telling me that, you know, something about old people, elderly people, that the way Americans deal with elderly people is by not giving them what they want. So as you know, they don't give those older people what they want so that they could desire to leave rather than get away from me. You know, they could desire to leave. I don't know who. There were a bunch of women white women at the park walking around, and as they're walking by, they're cutting me down. I'm not exactly sure what crawled inside of them, but you know, there's two of them right there, and so I just told her to get away from me. You know, she was contradicting me as I was talking, but anyway. So what was given to them is, I guess what they're saying is, what she was saying is that when a person gets old, they give them the opposite. They don't give them what they want, so that they can leave, so that when the time comes and God takes their lives, then, you know, that's what they get. What's ailing the European Americans is that I'm a Haitian Cuban. I'm not their color and I'm not their race. And they're going berserk and crazy because their color and their race is not leading me. And so they want their color and their race to lead me. They want their color and their race to be in charge of me. They want their color and their race telling me what to do. They want their color and their race being the master and lord over me. So leaving Howells, I was frustrated and pissed off at the fact that and of course the cashier was a replica of a Gerardo Hernandez, and of course, who is Gerardo Hernandez? He's a representative of a Guy Franklin, Gabriel's son. And of course, the white woman who was behind me, an aisle behind me, had the face structure of a Gabriel. So here I am dealing with the Franklin family again, now at Powell's bookstore here in Portland. And I'm thinking, I didn't say anything to management. I just walked out. We exchanged words. And as I was walking out, I'm like, you know, no, this isn't my store. Because, I mean, I'm on their website, but this isn't my store, because there are people who work for Powell's that, you know, that are racist. You know, they don't want Negroes in the store. They shoot me out of the store several times. The workers and the patrons. And so I don't have a problem with the bookstore itself, but, you know, some of the workers there are very prejudiced, and they're very racist, and they make it very known. I mean, they make it very obvious. You know, they don't want me in their face asking questions. And, you know, what was said tonight was, he's always in here, but he never buys any books. But who goes into a bookstore frequently and buys books? Most of the time, if there's a bookstore, they go and they drink their coffee, they pick up a magazine, and they meet a friend, and they talk over whatever the article is, or whatever. People hang out at bookstores all the time, but they, you know, for somebody to go to a bookstore every day and buy books, no, that's unheard of. They browse through and they talk about whether or not they need the book, and so on and so forth, you know. So after tonight's encounter with Powell's, I just made the decision I can't go in there and do anything, because, you know, the workers need permission from a white person who looks like Gabriel Franklin, a white person that looks like John MacArthur, a white person that looks like, you know, I don't know who, in order for me to buy a book or in order for me to inquire about a book. And so I'm thinking, what kind of country are we living in here, people? You know, they don't approve of let's talk about God. I mean, the Word of God tells you the faith that you have as your own conviction before God. You know, the faith that you have as your own conviction before God. You know, and on my way here, I had one woman. I guess she was wearing orange and she was doing this, and I'm thinking, you know, I wanted to. Oh God, they have no idea how insulting that was to me. That woman is a molester and a child rapist. I would never give myself over to that woman. And when I saw her do that, standing at the door, I lost it. I lost it. I threatened to kill her because they don't understand how insulting it is for a woman like Gabrielle Franklin to constantly, nightly, you know, sit there and, you know, and doing this. And then on top of it, they're asking me to go to, you know, to their taboo to do that. And I'm thinking, you know, Americans, get over yourselves with this thing. You know, get over yourself. You know, authors, I don't know what it means to be a European, and I don't know what it means to be a European author. I don't know what kind of heat European authors suffer and go through on account of the jealousies of their own people, the hatred of their own people, the maladies of their own people. You know, as an author, as a European author, I'm sure they get the riffraff. You know, the educationalist, the grammarian, the historian. You know, everybody has something to say and critique of the book and of the writing, but yet give them a pen and tell them to write the book and write a book themselves. They won't do it. You know, they're quick to critique how we write the book, how grammatical we are, whether our sentence structure is correct or not. But give them a pen and a pad and tell them write a book. But, you know, themselves, and make the correction, and they won't do it. They have no idea how difficult it is to write a book. And those who have already been established as authors have the tendency, you know, to sabotage and to destroy and to hurt people who are trying to get into the industry. I mean, we're not saying that we want to be you, but, you know, for me to get my foot into the door, I can't even do that. You know, yeah, the book is just sitting there on the publisher's, you know, it's not even in the bookshelf. It's sitting on the publisher's, you know, back computer somewhere. I mean, all three of my books, you know, the books are just sitting there. Why? Because they can't get into the bookstores, right? I'm not exactly sure what it is, but they can't get into the bookstores. And even if they did get into the bookstore, God only knows the kind of response they would get, you know. The same thing with the preaching, you know. I bought the transcriber so that I could transcribe the preaching into literature and turn them into books. But even then, you know, they're being negative and critiquing. It's like I can never do anything right with these American European people. I can never go in the right direction. You know, you go biblical, and that's not good enough. You go gay, and that's not good enough. You go straight, and that's not good enough. And then I'm like, what do you want? Well, we want you to be a slave. So we want the books, we want the literature, we want the money, we want everything. What do I get out of this life that God has given me? I mean, this is the kind of people that I'm dealing with. You know what I'm saying? It's like they want my life, they want my name, and they want me to have nothing. And I'm saying, I don't understand. Why did God bring me into this generation of people to deal with the people who want me to have absolutely nothing? That doesn't make any sense. God don't make us and put us on a planet full of people, and then just so that generation could sit there and rip you apart and tear apart at your life. You know, take away your health, your education, your food, your shelter, your home, everything that you have. You know, piece by piece. That's ludicrous. That's madness. That's inhumane. You understand what I'm saying? For them as a race to have everything, and then for you who are not a member of the tribe or a member of the race, you know, to get torn apart and shredded from piece to piece. You know, from one family to another, and from one person to another. It's just unheard of. It's insulting. You know, it's insulting to me. And so I gave them a piece of my mind, and told them exactly where I thought it was at. You know, they're you know, because of the fact that they're in charge, I have no life. Because of the fact that they're in charge, I have no wife. Because of the fact that they're in charge, I have no sons, no daughters, no money, no reason to live, because they're in charge. And that's not what God has intended for any of his children, for a race of people to completely come in and dominate over them and take complete control over them and then pretend to be in charge. You know, I mean, if the Lord would have put his hands on the Europeans here in America heavily, you know, these people would be crying for mercy and grace. You know, just like they cry for mercy and grace when the earthquake swallows up their homes and the floods, you know, swallows up their streets and their businesses, and wildfires destroy their homes. You see them, you know, weeping and crying and gnashing of teeth. And I'm thinking, what are you crying about now? You know, you wanted to be in charge, you wanted to play God, and now he's giving it back to you. You should be able to stand on your own 2 feet and give it back to him. You know, now finally the Lord puts his foot down, and look who's crying. You know, look who's weeping. You know, look who, and it's not even a 9/11 situation where another nation is hitting you, but it's him who's come down and he's giving you a flood to deal with. He's giving you an earthquake. He's giving you a whirlwind that's swallowing up your entire community. Right? He's destroying. Look at the diseases that he's putting in your body. Now let's see how much in charge you are. And so as a community, I tell them, you know, you can't sit on a stool and tie your shoes at the same time. You know, and yet you want to play in control over me and what I write, what I'm communicating to the American people, and what I have to say to them. I mean, if God didn't have a purpose for me in this planet, I would not be in existence. If God didn't have a purpose for me to be alive in the 21st century, he would have taken 9 months to make me in my mother's womb and 43 years to grow me and to make me and to put me here. And so, obviously, he has a reason for me being here. He has a purpose for me being here. You may not, you know, you as American Europeans who are white in skin, who don't particularly give 2 shits about anybody else, seem to think that, you know, life revolves around you, but yet let God come down and touch you the way you touch me on a daily basis, and it's a whole different story. I want to see here if this is still going. Yes, it is. And so, do I have a verse of scripture? I've got plenty verses of scripture. I mean, I've got more verses of scripture than I need. I turned to Luke for about a minute while I was sitting there, and the passage that I read out of Luke says, you know, I only read half of the verse. It says in Luke, in the earlier part of Luke, it says, and this is quoting Jesus saying, what do they say of me? You know, who do they say that I am? You know, and I wonder and I question in this generation. I don't believe for 1 minute that they believe that Jesus was the Son of God. They don't believe that Jesus was the Messiah. They don't believe that Jesus was who he says he was, because they don't live that way. When a person says they believe, they live like believers. When a person says they have faith, they live like people of faith. When the people say that we believe that God became incarnated into human flesh, guess what happens? You live that way. You don't say it with your mouth and not live it with your life. You live it, right? You don't just say it. But the real preaching is not what you say, but it's how you live, right? The real preaching is not in your words, but the real preaching is how you live from day to day. With you know, in dealing with your situations and whether or not you accept God's position in that situation, or whether or not you reject God's position. It's not whether you get angry or frustrated or pissed off, or you're cursing or you're not cursing, or you're tearing the carpet and shredding the linoleum. No. It's where do you see God in the situation? You see, it's where do you see the Father in all that's happening? You know, when Jesus was being crucified, he says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And he says, Father, into your hand I commit my spirit. Right? He says, my God, why have you forsaken me? He never turns to the people and says, you know, shame on you for crucifying me. Shame on you for sticking nails into my hands. Right? Jesus never did that. He didn't tell the people, shame on you for what you have done. Although he did say that the one that has the greater sin is the one that sold me out. I think that's about as much as he has said against those who were his enemies and were crucifying him. And so, you know, I read that one passage that, who do men say I am? And then I thought about it for a minute, and I said, you know what? Who do men say I am? You know, when they look at me, it's not who you are anymore, Lord. It's who I am. When they see me, what do they see? They don't see a pastor. They don't see a teacher. They don't even see a preacher. What they see is a gay Haitian man who is trying to rise up onto their level. And they compare me to Mark Rodriguez because in their mind they say that I look like Mark Rodriguez, and they say that he's the lead and he's the first and I'm the second. Right? He's the one to take charge and I'm the one to subordinate myself to him. And so I think every known leader and every leader, not only in America, but people want to know, what do they think of me? What do they say of me? What do these people, and the reason why I bring that up is because what a person thinks of you goes back to, the preaching that you preach, the books that you write, what you're communicating to them. And I think the American people don't have a clear view of what God is trying to communicate to them. I don't believe that the American people have a clear understanding of where God is coming from when He raises up leaders, where God is coming from when He calls men into leadership, where God is coming from when He establishes Christians as leaders. I mean, remember, Jesus, when He came down here, He didn't go to Herod and to Pontius Pilate or to the Sanhedrin. He didn't take a trip to Rome to talk to the Roman Empire to give Him 12 men. You see, they were the empire of the known world around the Mediterranean, even over Israel. Right? And so when God chose, He didn't choose a bunch of good-looking, handsome, athletic, muscle-bound Adonis goddess. No, He just went to the common people of Israel, the fishermen, the smelly fishermen, and the men who were tax collectors and hated by their people. He went to men like Paul who were tent makers. He went to the normal guys, not the big humps, who were part of fraternities and sororities and men of great authority, like the men who would be on the tribunal of Caesar. He didn't go to the house of Caesar to find great generals from among the Roman cohort. No, he just went to the normal day-to-day people like Peter and John, and to accomplish His will and His task. Not men with, high degrees and high honors and full-blown training, in dealing with people and handling people. No, not at all. He just went to the norm, to the normal, the guy down the street. And He took the guy down the street who was willing to exercise faith in Him and turned him into what He calls an apostle, and turned him into what He calls a pastor, a preacher, a leader, an elder, a son of God, right? And so when you go into your churches, I was talking to this gentleman the other day, and we were talking about, he was saying that Satan attacks people that are of high ranking. And I think I might have mentioned this in another video, and I told him it's not just the people of high ranking that Satan attacks, it's the people who have faith. It's the people who believe. It's the people who believe in His holy name. It's people who practice Christianity without the permission of the Pope, the papacy, without the permission of a group of elders, who practice Christianity without the recognition of the elder board, without the recognition of everybody in that church. They practice Christianity because they believe that Christ is Christianity and Christ is the ruler of the world and of the church, right? So they don't practice Christianity because, they're going to get an extra reward or award. They practice Christianity because they believe the message of the gospel. They have faith, right? They're trusting in God, and therefore they're able to serve Him wholeheartedly. Well, these people here in Portland, Oregon, as it was in Seattle, Washington, don't approve of my serving God by faith. They want me to have permission from someone. And of course, the person that gives me permission needs to be recognized as the one who has given me permission. He needs to be recognized as the one who has brought me into their world, And I'm thinking, that's not how it is. This isn't all about recognition. It's about a God who is in heaven and who's sitting on a kingdom, who's sitting on a throne in His kingdom, and He has called the earth into existence and wants man to be a part of that kingdom if they would only believe Him. It's not about, the high-ranking officials high-ranking officials, and they think that books can only be written by high-ranking officials, people of high, people that they build up and soup up, to present them as the real leaders. But the people who actually have faith and could do the job, they shun them away. And so tonight I have to say something on my own behalf because of the fact that, though I'm not recognized by the world nor the church as a leader, though I'm not accepted or given the right hand of fellowship as a leader, though I'm not, I'm not gracing the cover of every magazine, and as you can see, my hair doesn't exactly fit the role, and my attire doesn't exactly fit the role, and I'm sure I could get a haircut and show up at every church meeting with the three-piece suit on, but unless God is involved in my life somehow, unless God has something to do with my existence and my calling, then, if God doesn't have anything to do with it, what am I doing practicing Christianity? Christianity is not for show. Christianity is behind closed doors. When you close your eyes and say, Lord, I'm ready to come home, this place is giving me the creeps. Christianity is when you're about to eat a meal and you quietly close your eyes and say, Lord, thank you for providing this bread and water for me. Christianity is in the closet when you're like, Lord, what do I do with all of this stuff? Where do I go with all of this stuff? And of course the devil is listening, and so are his angels listening, because they want to take all that stuff away from you, because that stuff identifies you as the church. Will a church ever be established under my authority? If it's not God's will, it's not going to be done. Will the American people ever stop sinning? No. Americans will never stop sinning. For as long as they live on planet Earth, they will never stop sinning against God willfully, or however they do it. They're not going to stop, no matter what. And that's my grief for them, because if they don't take the gospel seriously in this generation and in this day and age, they're the ones that are going to suffer loss, and they're going to suffer loss greatly. Anyway, I don't know what time it is right now. It's probably around 9-ish, 9:05, and I'm going to turn off this video camera. But I wanted you to know that look for, if it does get published by Let's Talk by Holy Fire Publishing, that's the company that I'm using. I don't know where they're at among the other. I think they're more like the Mamas and Papas publishing company. I don't know. I don't think they're on. They're with those other companies. Those commercialized publishing companies. And just because they're commercialized, they're no different. I mean, it's the same work, the same load. They may be carrying a lower load of people. I think that's what it is. They don't have as many. They don't have as many. Excuse me. They don't have as many authors. That's it. They don't have as many authors. The commercialized ones are huge. Everybody knows who they are, and so everybody uses them, right? Because they have more authors and more name brands or whatever. But I didn't go for the name brand authors because it would have cost me $3,000 to publish each book, and this is the fourth one. And I'm ready to fight. Not that I want to, but I'm ready to fight off the devil and the demons and the people who are not really interested in Christianity, so that they don't hurt the book, they don't hurt my work, and put me back on the burner where I have to write a new book. And so, if ever you're online and you're watching my videos, and you appreciate the videos, and you think I should get some sort of monetary, how do you say, support. Don't, at first I thought it would be okay if people could do it directly, but I think it would be best if you do it to a church, right? If you go through a church and bring the church, the body, involved in it, then that secures me and that secures you, so that it doesn't become a personal thing where you're just giving me money, or you're just giving me the support yourself, because that can turn sometimes. And so I think it's wise if you want to participate in giving in this ministry, that you go through a church. Go to your church. The church that you go to. Bring the elder board, bring the pastors into it, bring whoever, and say, hey, I want to fellowship with this brother, and I want him to have this. Can you support me in that? It's good for 2 or 3 to gather together, and that protects your side, and that protects my side. Why? Because Satan has a tendency to hurt us. you know, and he will bring brothers against brothers, sisters against brothers, brothers against sisters, and sometimes I'm walking around here, I'm at the top of my lungs, cursing at the world, because the world will not stop hitting me. And why? Because I'm doing ministry. They don't want me doing any kind of ministry without, you know, the bells and chains, without the whip and chain, right? Without the ball and, how do you say, the ball and chain? You know, which is the recognition of Europeans, which is the acceptance of Europeans, which is the superior supremacy of the European people to accept the fact that I've been given a calling of some sort. And you know, that's not what God is asking in the Bible. And so I want to make sure you out there who are watching my videos, you out there who are listening to the words that I'm saying, and sometimes you see me going into a place where I ought not to go. It's not because I want to, it's because I'm dealing with the world, I'm dealing with the state. I have not changed. I'm still the same person that's been giving you the Word of God. So when you see me out there at the top of my lungs, it's because I'm being hit by the world, you know, and its communities. It's not because I want to curse or yell or scream or carry on like a heathen. No, it's because I'm being hit. I'm being hurt, not disciplined, because when you discipline someone, it's because they're doing something wrong. But when you're hitting someone and hurting someone, it's because, you know, they're not doing what you want them to do. And so I want you to understand that I welcome your support, but I want you to do it with, you know, Paul, I think it's in 1 Corinthians, he says, tell the church to set aside the offering, right? And they collectively gave it to him as a body rather than one person individually. And it's the same thing with the church of Philippi, where when Paul, when they helped Paul as a church, you know, as a family of believers. It's not just one person doing it. Even with Lydia in Acts 16, when he met with Lydia and they listened to him and they supported him, it was in a group setting. It wasn't just a one person, but it was a group of women and a group of men gathering together and supporting Paul. And so I welcome the support groups and the prayer groups and but one individual person by themselves. You got to understand, we live in a day and age where sex is very tempting for men. Men are constantly tempted sexually, and you know, you hand me a 10 or a 20 or a 100 or whatever it is, and guess what you're going to want from me? Not because you desire it, but because the community of sinners around you desire it, and they'll tell you and they'll make you come after me for it. Or if it's not sex, it's slavery. And if it's not slavery, it's subjugation. If it's not subjugation, it's submission. Somehow or another, they will bring it. And so I discourage it. And yet I encourage instead the biblical example, which is go through the church. You know, there's a fellow that has been desiring to assist me and help me. And I said to him, you know, it's probably best to wait. And when God gives me the blessing that he has in store for me, then along with the other churches who I'm sure will be more than happy to bless me with whatever monetary value they want to bless me with, then come and give me your blessing when everybody comes. But if you come now by yourself, it's not going to mean anything. But when you come with everybody else come, then you know you're numbered and you're not by yourself dealing with the devil. And because everybody came together and said, hey, this is the ministry that the Lord has for you. It's not just a one-on-one thing. I noticed that in the church, the one-on-one thing is a very strange thing, and sometimes they'll use that one Christian against another Christian, which is what they've done to me repeatedly throughout the church. In the past, people that I used to know would turn on account of the fact that the community of sinners would take control over their lives, and then I would lose them as a friend. I would lose them as a confidant. I would lose them as someone that I used to have fellowship with. But now I can't fellowship with anymore because the world's community doesn't approve of my writing. They don't approve of my preaching. They don't approve of my wanting to lead a Bible study. They don't approve of my meetings. They don't approve of my attire. They don't approve of my association with the church, not on the homeless side, but on the leadership side. You know, even today, I still can't get the leadership of churches to stand with me or to stand with the gospel that I preach openly. I mean, if they do anything, it has to be behind closed doors, and it has to be in hush-hush. And I'm thinking, that's not the church. You know, we're not a hush-hush people. You know, God puts us out there, and he says, go make disciples of all nations, teach them to observe all that I commanded you, and lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. You know, so God is not quiet about how he's dealing with us, and so neither should we be quiet either. Well, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and turn off this camera, and I pray that those of you who are watching this will understand where I'm coming from, and will understand that this ministry is only going to work if you pair up with your church or pair up with somebody in the body and decide to come and help me and stand alongside me. You know, we want a legitimate church, right? We want a legitimate group. I mean, if you want to meet with me and pray with me, you can. You know, if you want to fellowship with me, you can. If you want to talk to me about the books, spiritual convictions pertaining to the Christian faith, Let's Talk About Satan, and the Duclairon commentaries on the Epistle of Ephesians, you know, Duclairon's commentary on Ephesians, right? Whichever of those books, or this new one, Let's Talk About God, you know, I'm willing to sit down and talk and chat with whoever. You know, I'm not saying that I get great revelations from heaven and I hear his voice and none of that. You know, I'm just the normal Christian and the everyday Joe type of Christian, and so I don't get those supernatural. I mean, if those supernatural powers are still there, praise God, but if they're not, then don't be surprised when you fellowship with me and it's not all, you know, the Holy of Holies and glory divine. The Bible says the faith that you have as your own conviction before God, right? The Lord has reduced meeting him, knowing him, to just, you know, bread in the cup, you know, and that's it, and no more. Anyway, all of these apartments behind me here have their televisions on. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It's like 15 to 20 story high building back here. Man, what I would give to live in one of those apartments. But for whatever purpose or reason, God has me out here instead. And so you pray for me, church, that God will bless me and remove me out of this situation so that I could really plunge into doing the work of the ministry that he has in store for me. I still can't. I'm still short of 2 recommendations for the seminary, and I don't know where I'm going to get them from. So pray that God will provide those 2 seminary recommendations. And apart from that, I think that's it for tonight's report or for tonight's activities. And until I come back to the camera and we meet again.